all out, about to start a war now. Second time around, so we doing it in style. It's all elite, not accepting defeat. A lot can change in 1 year, but more can change in 1 week. Believe the hype, the train's leaving tonight. Hit the throttle, we headed straight to Chicago. It's only getting better, this is our future endeavor. I can't wait to see the fight between Pac, Kenny, Omega.
Let's get ready to podcast.
Hey, this is Luchasaurus, and that's Jungle Boy. And you need to check out All Elite Podcast. Hey,
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast, Wednesday night's main event, episode number 6, I believe, right, AJ? This was our 6th episode of Dynamite, another one in the books. This is going to be a bit of a shorter podcast than usual. Your boy has to get on the road to do a little bit of coverage at StarCast, so we'll be there in media form for StarCast 4. Really excited for all of that. So we'll have a lot of stuff on our social media feeds. Keep an eye out on that for all the exciting stuff that's going on there. But otherwise, AJ, let's talk about this week's episode of Dynamite. What did you think, man?
You know, I'm not sure how I feel, but I feel like it didn't deliver enough to be a go-home show, the first go-home show.
I don't know, man. I might have to disagree. I'm not 100% on board with you there. I didn't necessarily get to see every bit of this week's episode. I was packing and getting things ready last minute, as I love to do. I can never have anything done early or on time. So I'm sitting here trying to pack and get everything done as we're getting ready to drive to Denver. But I don't know what I saw, what I watched, because I did watch a majority of it. It was a really good show, and I thought it was a good lead into the pay-per-view. I thought they did a good job at establishing a couple of matches that we hadn't had established. One thing I would have liked to see was more B. Priestley and Britt Baker build-up.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's just for the pre-show, I guess. But let's just jump right into the first match. We got Pac versus Trent. Pac picks up the victory in about 12 minutes. There was a botched finish here. It was really weird. Bryce Remsburg had a couple of really weird moments in this match. I don't know. Your thoughts?
This was a great match, and the finish got really ruined by that botch. And I don't know if it was the kick out or the count, but I do know that, you know, the referee should have still counted 3 if the shoulders are down.
Yeah, I really, honestly, I missed exactly what happened here because I was busy posting GIFs on the match, and as I was loading one, I could literally hear it in the background because what I do is I play Dynamite on my TV, which is ahead of what I take the GIFs from, so then I'm ahead by like a minute or two. So when I'm doing this, I hear an audible boo in the background after a 2 count, and I'm like, they're mad that Trent kicked out of the Black Arrow. I was like, that's funny. But then you're going off in the chat about Bryce, and I was like, oh, it was something else, and it was way worse than what I thought it was. So,
way worse. And he does that finish a lot where he'll hit the Black Arrow and it gets a 2 count, and then he puts in the Brutalizer. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's the finish, and Trent just didn't kick out, and he was expecting him to, but it doesn't matter. Shoulders are down, you count the 3.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. If the shoulders are down, you count the 3, especially if it doesn't change the exact winner of the match. So I think that Bryce especially just dropped the ball right there. But nonetheless, a really good match. Pac did a good job at elevating Trent in this match. I felt like Trent looked really good in this.
Yeah, no, he definitely looked great in this match. Both guys looked great in this match. This was otherwise, it had the possibility of being my main event for tonight because of how good this was, but that finish really did, it took me out of it, man.
Oh, for sure. And the thing about it was, like you said, it was a solid open. Pac, it blows me away because we know how good Pac is, but throughout the match, people were starting to really believe in Trent. You got really big Trent chants.
I really thought they got me for a second.
People really wanted Trent to pick up a victory here and maybe start establishing himself as somewhat of a solo character, which would have been interesting and maybe even smart on AEW's part, because I think Trent has always had that ability and that look, and he's so laid back that something about him just appeals to people, and I think he could really get over off of that. And then you just pair up Orange Cassidy and Chucky T.
That would be good.
But after that, we get, like I said, Pac cuts a nice promo on Adam Page, and a really solid promo. But then it's topped by an even better promo after this. We get Cody Rhodes finally being able to make his career announcement, and he at first had me thinking that it was exactly what we didn't want, where he was going to say if he loses, he ends his career. Instead, he's saying if he loses, he will never challenge for the AEW Championship again. I like this dynamic, honestly. I think some people overreacted a bit on social media and were saying that they really were against it and didn't love it, but honestly, if you're asking me, I love it. I think that this is a interesting way, because I think a lot of people, us included, were kind of thinking it was a given that Jericho would win.
Yes.
So it's sort of in the alternate direction now.
I'm going to say I don't love this, but I like it in comparison to what I thought it was going to be, which is what you were saying. I thought he was going to say, oh, my career is over. If I lose this match, I'm going to go full-time into management. But I still would prefer they didn't do this at all, I think. I would prefer that they just have the match, and I already don't know who would win that way, because Cody's been put over so hard, and he's been going into this so hot, and everybody's so pro-Cody right now, that I was already thinking he had a good chance to win. I don't know that this is a necessary thing you need to add to the match.
The thing about it is I really could see him losing and then never challenging for the championship essentially again, or for a very long time, until he enters some type of blood feud with someone and there's just like a killer aspect to it. Other than that, like, I think it could be a good opportunity to have a reason to not have Cody, who might be one of the biggest stars in the company, not in the title picture. You know, he sort of fades out to be more of, maybe he decides, well, I'll go for the tag team division or something like that. Could be an interesting way to change things up, and it's a risky hand to play, I think. Maybe establishing Cody, who is a main eventer, the top guy, almost essentially almost bigger than Cody at this point, or bigger than Kenny at this point. It would be difficult as a fan to see that he's never getting another championship shot down the road. But again, like I said, it could lead to some interesting things, and I wouldn't be against it. So and the fact that it's not the last match on the card, or at least I'm assuming as such with that lights out match, that it could go either way still. And I think this adds I think too many people are saying, oh, this is a guarantee Cody wins, because I don't really think this is that.
I think that it's pretty guaranteed to me, and I see where you're coming from, but to me, I feel like Cody's going to win, and they've not necessarily told us that, but they certainly have made it look that way to me.
And I think it just will add more to that shock of, holy crap, Cody lost, when he does lose. Because I think, like I said, if you're asking me to pick right now, I'm saying that Cody loses. I'm saying Jericho wins and they do something really crazy here. But you never know.
I just don't think so. But if that happens, then you're right. That is going to be crazy.
I just think in terms of
you do open the doors to a lot of opportunities.
In terms of people they want to win the championship, like Adam Page or Kenny Omega, beating someone like Jericho is going to be a bigger deal than anyone beating Cody at the moment. And I think a long run for Cody right now isn't going to look good for the company, because he's an executive vice president, and he can't have a short run because we will have just had a short run with Jericho. So, I mean, he viably could, but it just wouldn't look that good in my opinion. So, who knows? I think that's the point of something like this, is it adds a lot more dynamic for me and you to go back and forth.
You're absolutely right.
Where you're on that side of the fence where you're like, no, dude, this is probably means he's going to win. And I'm on the other side of the fence where I'm like, no, I actually think he's going to lose. So, that's good. I think that's the good point of this, and I don't think we would have had the same discussion had they not done this announcement.
Yeah.
From there, we get Private Party beating the Dark Order in a match that was very confusing, because commentary was confusing me on what the hell the rules were here. Like, at first I didn't realize that the Lucha Brothers were in the championship match for the pay-per-view, so they kept saying that the winner of this match... They did announce
it earlier.
They were like, the winner of this match is in the pay-per-view match. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, they're going to be in a triple threat at the pay-per-view. So I'm like, are all three teams facing off at the pay-per-view? What the fuck is the point of this?
If you missed that card... If you had missed the card earlier, which you did, they're saying that it was going to be for the third spot in a triple threat tag team match, you would have no idea what the hell they were talking about.
And
it sounded awkward, the whole thing, not just that, but SCU being on commentary and just standing there because they didn't have chairs was also really awkward.
It was hilarious, because on the Spanish announce side, they definitely had chairs. So I was like, you fuckers. But it was very awkward. SCU did not come off incredible on commentary at all. And they didn't do a good job at selling what that story was. Like, I get it. If you showed it already earlier on, that's my bad for missing it, but it's also their bad for not continuing to explain it to new fans who might just be tuning in. You can't assume every fan has been watching from start to finish, so you do have to remind fans. And I get they were kind of trying to do that, but they were not doing a good job with it.
Did a bad job of that, yeah.
But it was still a really, really fun match. I think the Dark Order's starting to look better and better every week. Because they're not seeming to be focused on as maybe a potential main event act. We're seeing them more as like, oh, they're going to be like kind of jobbers. Maybe not jobbers isn't the word for them, but they're definitely enhancing other talent more so than they are winning.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know if that's the spot for. I think that's just the spot they've ended up in. I feel like it was entirely possible that they would, if things had gone differently with how people reacted to them, they would be the champions right now. But as it is, nobody's gotten over on the Dark Order.
Yeah, I even asked the question on Twitter, and there was not a very high response of people saying that we were big fans of the Dark Order yet. So, and I'm not totally against it, but in my personal opinion, in watching it, I was very much more impressed by these guys this week than I have been in past weeks. And honestly, it's just because they're continuing to do what they've done in past weeks, but just make it more crisp and like establishing everything really well. But I like
that Evil. Sorry, I was going to say, I like that Evil Uno was wearing that shirt, because before you could be like, oh, he doesn't look right, or he looks too flabby or whatever, but now he just looked like a big hoss, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, it really helped his look. But the thing about it is I do have to agree with you and others on social media who have said that Stu Grayson kind of stands out as that guy.
Yep.
You know, there could be a lot of potential for him down the road if they can separate these two. And not to say that Evil Uno is like holding him down, but I would almost rather just see a feud between these two guys at this point. Like, I don't know why it would happen. I don't know what the sense it would be, but I would rather see them just beat the shit out of each other than face other people, because it just doesn't work. And they might have better chemistry and better luck against each other in like a 3-month blood feud.
That would be really cool, actually, and I think I would enjoy that. Yeah, do that instead, because this ain't working.
Yeah, so, but I understand them sticking with it. And the Dark Order, I was thinking in this episode of Dynamite, was they're kind of falling that same category. I put the Librarians and a couple other, like Brandon Cutler, those type of people in, where they did a good job at putting them over before, essentially, so they could like lose now, and we would have thought that they were going to be winners. Like, I almost appreciate that. Like, that was really clever pre-booking essentially for television, where they made guys like Cutler and the Librarians and the Dark Order look like they could be potential winners and like strong, but then we come into TV and we're like, oh, okay, the people we don't like who kind of suck are going to lose. That's good. And then we get all three teams for the triple threat facing off in the ring. What a match this one's going to be. This is going to be insane. I have to assume that SCU comes out the victors in this one. You don't want to see the championships changing hands too quickly,
very,
too
very
early.
Quick reign, wouldn't it? Yeah, no. It has to be SCU. If it's anybody... I guess you could take this as an opportunity to hot potato it to a different team, but why would you do that?
I might see an argument to give it to Private Party as they've continued to get over.
That's the only thing I can think of.
And they've gotten more over than maybe they expected. And you can't imagine that because they let them beat the Bucks, so they had to have expected this. But maybe just still more over than what they expected, and realize that it might be better off to have them as the champions in SCU. But I really don't see that. I see an SCU reign, or maybe even the Lucha Brothers somehow stealing it, but. Yeah, just because it's SCU, I see them just continuing a reign here. I can see them holding on to it for a while.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, though. I think SCU is going to hold on to it.
And then from there, we get a Chris Jericho video montage, essentially mocking everything that Cody's video montages up to this point.
That was so good.
It was really good and really funny and just well done by Jericho, and a really well done.
Gave Sammy G a kiss on the cheek. It was everything. Oh God, it was so fucking funny. Jericho's a genius, and he just keeps on proving it. And this is a Jericho move. You know it's not just somebody else whispering in his ear, going, "Hey, this would be a good idea." Like every time Jericho does something, it's so quintessentially Jericho.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. And it was a really great segment and just something Jericho and Cody did a good job at not necessarily having to be the focal points to close out the show. They were still a part of the closing, but they did a good job at building their feud without being the focal points at the very end, which I appreciated because we got a focal point on everyone instead.
Yeah.
And then we got a tag team women's match with Emi Sakura and Jamie Hayter versus Riho and Shauna from last week. I think we got the answer now. If Jamie Hayter is signed on full time, she's now got a tag team victory over Riho. I know she didn't pick up the win. It was Emi Sakura picking up a victory over Riho, setting up that women's championship match even more. And this is what I meant. Like, we obviously didn't get a long build up to this, but we did get a little bit more build leading up to it, and it is just your typical tag team victory over the champion. But still, it leaves you with an interest going into that main event, or not that, but that women's championship match at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and they announced it very quickly, like the tag match, just Emi Sakura and Riho would be facing off, but they didn't even show a card for that. This one was less clear, but it became very clear once Emi won. This was a great match, too, where everybody was really on point, and everybody did their job, and Emi Sakura was on fire, healing it up, and then she even got the crowd to do the "We Will Rock You" chant whenever, even after all the healing she did in this match. She is absolutely great, and I'm excited that these two are going to face off on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I did actually. They had noted this match that it would be going on the pay-per-view before the show even started, so I at least had that confirmation to understand why this match was happening and why Emi had ended up picking up that win. And I think it was, again, just a solid small build. Granted, it wasn't like it wasn't the end of a feud per se, but it was still a go-home show in the sense that we were able to build a lot of the feuds for the pay-per-view, so I liked that.
Yeah.
This one I didn't get to see a ton of. This was at the point of my night where I thought I had lost something very important and was going to be shit out of luck for my trip, but I was able to find it, luckily. But yeah, I had missed a majority of this match because of that, unfortunately, because I really want to see how Jamie Hayter and Shauna do. Two women who have gotten a lot of focus on television over the past 3 weeks. Both women focused in some point, so it's cool.
Yeah, and I would say they both did fine in this match, and they weren't put the spotlight on for a lot of it. It was a lot more Emi Sakura and Riho, which makes sense. Yeah, but they were there, and they were prominent, and everybody had their moments in this match, and it was a good match.
And the thing that I like about it is, like, you could have easily used Allie and anyone that we've seen, Penelope Ford. We could have used them, who we've seen plenty of times, and we've actually seen them on the independents and on other companies, so they have an established record and repertoire with the fans. But instead, we're using these women who people probably looked at more of as jobbers last week, and instead this week you see that they're not. They're definitely not that. They can be put in a position to win, and who knows how far that could go for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool because you now have Jamie Hayter with the win, and she has something on her record, so she's not a jobber. 1-1, man. So yeah, she's really here.
Back at 500, she could go on a run and become some random new face in the women's division that could be getting a potential championship shot down the line for all we know. So it doesn't seem likely, but as a fresh face for me, I'm not opposed to that. That's something I really like. From there, we get Brandy Rhodes and Awesome Kong video package. This was decently done. Another thing that I didn't really hear a ton of as I was busy looking for things, but it looked cool.
It was cool, and I think it did the job of making me understand that this is I don't think this is gonna be a real tag team. I think this is gonna be Awesome Kong beating people up, and that's what I'm gonna hope that it stays as, because it seems like that's the implication, that she's gonna be the brains and Kong is gonna be the brawn, and that's good. Do that, because Brandy can cut a promo, and she is good at the mic, and she is good at making people hate her. So that'd be a great role for her.
Yeah, and I think it also sets up a potential scenario where Kong eventually releases herself from Brandy, turns on Brandy, kills Brandy, and becomes some type of heel person. The one thing that I'm a little nervous about is they have to have, like, because Brandy is such an important figure of running the women's division behind the scenes, and they've played it up so much over the Road 2 series and everything. The one thing that I'm concerned about is they need to have a way to still get her back to a path where she can be that face of Like, she's the one who was big on bringing the Culture City thing together and things like that. It's tough to combine those. Like, I understand it's a storyline, but it does tarnish the storyline or the story you're trying to tell on TV when you're doing those things so publicly, especially with Twitter and things like that today. So I'm a little worried about that. Otherwise, I do like how they're building it, and who knows what could happen with it. I just hope it doesn't lead to some position where Kong kills a women's champion just for Brandy to pick up the pin off that murder. That's the only thing I don't want to see.
That would be bad. I would not like that.
After this, we get Shawn Spears, AJ's boy, beating Brandon Cutler in a short match, thank goodness. I'm not a big fan of Brandon Cutler. I'm not a big anti-Brandon Cutler guy. He's all right, but he just does a lot of things, and like he does a lot of like flippy kicks. I would say like the Kofi Kingston type of moves,
yes,
which seem very awkward coming from a guy like him. He does a lot of things actually that I like. But then he does those moves that are very much like, you could tell he's a guy who just worked with the Bucks forever and didn't realize he was a big dude. Like, that's how I feel like it. He just never realized it.
That's a great description. Oh my God, yes, that you've described Brandon Cutler.
And so he wants to continue doing all of these things, and it just doesn't even look that crazy because he's not that built. So it's not like when Keith Lee does a moonsault. It's just like this tall, lanky dude can do flips.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
it was almost like, I would expect that. You're tall. Like, piss off. But Shawn Spears picks up a victory. After this, Shawn Spears goes to destroy Brandon Cutler, but Joey Janela, everybody's boy, comes out to make a save. This is fun. I hope this leads to a match at Full Gear because that would be cool. Like, I get that we would be hot-shotting a lot of matches for Full Gear, but I'm fine with that.
Me too. At this point, you gotta stack the card up, and everybody wants to see Joey Janela. So I wish they had been doing this for, I don't know, the past few weeks, maybe the past 3 weeks. But better late than never. I'm looking forward to seeing them go at it, and I'm expecting them to. If they don't wrestle at Full Gear, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, the one thing I will give them is that while they haven't done the best at hyping the pay-per-view up to date, they are doing some type of hype video right now, actually, I believe, on YouTube that is probably doing a really good job at continuing to hype things. So that's something I can appreciate, is it's at least another Road to type of documentary thing that they're doing to try and promote Full Gear and the rest of the card as they flesh it out, even though it's a little bit later than we may have expected.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's nothing terrible. It's just like what I was saying. I don't know how I felt about the show, but we're not done talking about it. But there's something where it's not the show's fault. The show is fine. It's just maybe we should have been doing some of this a little earlier.
Yes. From there, we get a video package hyping up Moxley versus Omega, but I mean, I guess that's maybe something we just need to accept as fans, is that they're going to push like the top 4 matches on the card with the video packages and the crazy like super hype, and then the lower part of the card will come together maybe right before the show, which again, I'm not opposed to that being the method of their madness if this is how they do it, because again, like I said, I'm okay with how it's all been built. Janela versus Spears has been fun. Like, everything from top to bottom. I don't look at anything on the card and say it hasn't been built well, because even if it hasn't been, like, Janela and Spears, they've teased that for like a month now. We can't deny it. It's been there. B. Priestley and Britt Baker, they've teased that for longer than a month now. So some of these matches, outside of maybe Riho and Emi Sakura, which in honesty, it's the teacher versus student. Granted, we might not know that as American fans. It's still a story that really tells itself. So these matches that are thrown together actually are really well done, I would say.
That's fair. That's very fair, yeah.
And then we go to the main event of the night. We get the Inner Circle beating the Elite, Omega and Page in 13-10. After this match, we get a huge clusterfuck brawl like we called, but it was well done. Very well done.
This was well done. The whole match was well done, too. This was a great time. And you're right, we did call it, but and I think we called it and we said, like, man, I hope they don't go that route or whatever. But after seeing it, I thought this was great. And I
couldn't have thought of a better way to do it. In my opinion, like, I couldn't think of a better way to close the show. They really focused on like I said again, the top 4, maybe 5 matches on the card. They were able to get that focus on to close out the show, and really get people excited for it and get maybe.
And I was marking.
Yeah, and well, the thing about it is like I was watching this with my little brothers, my girlfriend, my brother's girlfriend. Like there was a group of us sitting down watching, and my brother's like, "Oh shit, that was lit!" Like they're like, "This is cool," and it's taken them a couple weeks to realize it, seeing different highlights and shit. But they're like, "This is cool as fuck," and I was like, "Wow, that's random to hear from you guys," because they really haven't been into wrestling since I was deep into WWE, which would have been like 5 or 10 years ago. We might still get together to watch WrestleMania every year, but that's literally it. They don't pay much attention. So it's interesting to see like that this big brawl was able to really catch my brother's attention, every bit of it. Nick Jackson doing a swanton bomb off of the railing, and just like huge crazy moments from it. So I really was enjoying this, and it was an exciting spot, and a good way to finish the show. I thought it was good to see Jericho maintain his his undefeated streak.
Yes,
Sammy Guevara continues to benefit off of teaming with Chris Jericho and his winning streak, but that was perfect. Omega takes another loss. I'm fine with that, honestly, because looking at his record, I don't see why people are so worked up over it. He's now 5-4. Not too terrible. I imagine Paige suffered much more. I don't know his record off the top of my head, but probably suffered much more. But otherwise, a really good finish to a really, really good show. Again, you might not have felt it so much as a really great go-home, but I really enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of great things. I think Cody's promo was insane. It was such a fantastic promo. Maybe like a new age, like it's going to be one of those promos I feel like people go back to. So
No, you're right about that. It's tough. I'm going to be one of those people going on YouTube looking up that promo. So you're right about that. I don't think this was necessarily a bad go-home show. You're right. I've come around since the beginning of the podcast as we've talked about this. I just think that maybe it's not how I would have preferred they build up the first go-home show. But that said, I'm not really going to be sure about how I feel about that until I see the pay-per-view. And I imagine I'm going to end up liking it. So I don't know.
And the thing is, I think they'll have much more time. I would at least have to assume, based upon them not even announcing another pay-per-view. Now, they could say that they're doing something at the end of December or something like that. It would come as a surprise to me. I would be surprised if we do anything before mid to end January now.
Yeah.
So that gives them a lot more time. Now, the 6 weeks they had, it was plenty of time to build a full card, but I think I'm more understanding right now that it's okay that there wasn't a fully fleshed out card, because it took them a while. They had to build champions to begin with, start building records on people, getting like a win-loss really established, and getting fans to take to that. And now we're really starting to take to it, as I said. I think that's becoming a positive thing. And I'm just excited to see how they do round out the full gear card. Let's go ahead and do quick predictions. I'm looking, and I do see that apparently Janela versus Spears has been added to the card, maybe as a pre-show match, maybe not. Go ahead and predict that one, AJ. That's going to be the hardest one for you.
Yep, it is. I'm going to say Janela. I love Sean Spears, but it's Joey Janela. I can't turn my back on.
And the thing about it is, I love that Spears is doing such a good job at like being this gatekeeper almost type of thing.
Yeah.
Like where he lost to Cody, but he still doesn't look like garbage. He almost looks like a upper mid card type of guy. Really important, because he did get that big fight with Cody, and it wasn't like a job in his loss. He's done a good story, a little story here with Janela that they've been able to tell. And hopefully it leads to a win for Janela, which I feel would elevate him, because it's a little bit more of a legitimate win, not your necessary indie win, but he's beating someone. Yeah, granted, he's coming from the WWE system. Spears has a little bit of that hype behind him, and I think he's got to have a decent win-loss at this point. He's won quite a few in a row now, so
I think so, yeah.
And that'll look good for Joey. So I would love to see Joey win there.
I think you're right, though. It will elevate Joey Janela, just him coming out on top, and I think that'll be good for him.
Yep, and then we got B. Priestley versus Britt Baker. That's definitely going to be on the pre-show, which was a little bit surprising to me, but it's actually fine by me, because if we're getting like new fans in on the pre-show, this is a really good showcase match, I would say.
Yeah. It seems like you would think Britt Baker would win this, and I feel like, yeah, she might, but I'm going to go B. Priestley, just because I think you need a good heel, like a strong heel, to go in and face Riho, and that's kind of spoils my pick for Riho and Emi Sakura, but I think we're going to see B. Priestley and Riho end up in some kind of a program, so I'm going to say B. Priestley.
I would like that, especially because Britt did a really good job at making B a heel, like a real nasty heel with her promo. whether it's true or not, whether any of it's true or not, because a lot of the things you see on social media would indicate that B isn't the nicest person in the world in real life. Mm-hmm. So, based on that, this promo did have a bit of that shoot type aspect to it. Now, who knows how much of it could have been, but it was still interesting, and I'd love to see B pick up the win here. So I think I'll go with you there. And then we'll just ride right into the next one, Riho versus Emi Sakura. You say you got Riho?
Yeah, I'm going to go Riho on this. And like you said, it's a classic teacher-student match, and I think that's the perfect first title match for Riho, like you were saying. And I think Riho getting a win here and having this big, like just having a really tear the house down, do the best you can match with the person who trained you would do wonders to make everybody go, wow, this is a real women's champion. This is a person we can get behind, like an ace, like we talked about.
Yeah, and I think that they've done a good job at elevating Riho. I definitely don't think Emi is the one to take the championship off her. I think that if you're going to try and, like, I think that Emi's doing a good job at getting over and things like that, but if you're trying to establish, like, Japanese wrestlers with an American fan base, you really have to focus on one at a time, and I don't think they would just immediately go from one to another and think that would work, because I just don't think that it would work.
But she's kind of long in the tooth now, and it shows sometimes.
Yeah, so, but it should be a really solid match, make Riho look really good, and should be a solid victory for Riho, so I'm excited for that. And I just don't want to see any championships being hot-shotted, and that would feel like this one. Yes. This one in the most would make the least sense to me. So
yeah, I agree.
And then we have Adam Page taking on Pac.
I'm gonna say Adam Page, and that's just because Pac has looked so good that I don't think he'll be hurt if he loses, and I think Page might be a little hurt if he loses this. You might want to have Adam Page keep looking strong after, especially the last pay-per-view losing to Jericho. It might be good to give him a bit of a redemption, unless he's going to turn heel. If he's going to turn heel, then hell, have him lose and have him look really defeated. But
yeah,
I'll say Adam Page.
That would be the only reason that would make sense to me in him losing. I think that I will look at AEW not in the sense of a 50-50 booking, but like in what would make sense. Like Paige lost on tonight's episode. Pac won, very easily setting them up for a situation where Paige picks up a victory and Pac can lose, and it doesn't really hurt anybody's record. It just brings them back to where they were at before tonight. So just on that circumstance, I think Paige wins. I think that Pac has done a good job at continuing to maintain victories, but Pac is someone that I almost keep an eye on. He can't win too much, or they just have to give him the belt.
Yeah, really.
Be my point. So once he beat Omega, you really had to be careful about what he did and didn't do. And I think that a win here could even set up maybe some type of random program between Paige and Omega down the line where Paige can say, well, I beat Pac and Pac beat you. So
yeah.
What's next? Let's talk about the Tag Team Championship match. Triple threat. We got SCU taking on the Lucha Brothers and Private Party. Another interesting, we talked about it a little bit, but a high-flying match. This one should be fun.
Yeah, this one is going to be a great match. I'm expecting them to tear the house down. I'm expecting JR to be upset and silently passive-aggressive. And I'm hoping that the SCU win, because that would just be a really quick title change. And for after a tournament, that's the kicker for me. After a big tournament, you have them lose it already. I don't want that. But it makes sense that they could. If it's going to be in any kind of match, this is the match where you drop it, because it's 2v2v2.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thinking on it, where you could easily have Phoenix get the pin on Isaiah Cassidy or Mark Quinn. SCU doesn't really have to suffer a loss, like an official loss here, but they still suffer a loss. We'll have to keep track here. Do you know if they count like a loss for both teams? I mean, you'd have to assume
I don't know.
so. Well, you'd have to assume.
I would, yeah, I'm thinking yes, but I have no idea.
But I'm curious to see how they do that with triple threats and multi-person matches in general. But this should be fun, a good tag team championship match. But again, I don't want to see any championships really changing hands too quickly. And if you plan on changing any in one night, again, this isn't the one that I feel it would be. Then the last tag team match, we'll talk about the Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz. This one they've been building up quite a bit. Who do you got here?
I feel like Santana and Ortiz should win because they look so good and they look so strong, and I feel like if the Young Bucks win, you're just kind of stomp out a flame that could become a really big fire.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that Santana and Ortiz are still new to a lot of people, a lot of fans watching who maybe weren't familiar with the Impact or independent name that Santana and Ortiz were able to make for themselves under the LAX moniker. Now they have to be a whole different name on top of that. So I do think that they need to pick up a victory here. And again, it would lean into my thought of where the Young Bucks were talking about how they wanted to lose a lot earlier on, and they didn't. It was because of matches like this where they really need a win. Really need to lose, I should say. So I'd really like to see Santana and Ortiz pick up the win here.
Yeah.
Then a non-sanctioned match, we have John Moxley versus Omega. The non-sanctioned factor actually makes me really I don't really know who could win. Maybe they just both die.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to win in this match, period. Even if it was regular match, I really don't know who to pick. But I'll just take a guess, and I'll say Kenny Omega. Just because I feel like whatever Kenny Omega does next, it's going to be you want to keep the iron hot for Kenny Omega, and you want him, whatever he's going to do, for it to be Kenny Omega looking good. And he is kind of your ace of the company, no matter how you look at it. I know you have Jericho and you have Cody, and you have a great size of people who could be considered the ace, but Kenny Omega might be the best wrestler in the world, so it's hard to not consider him that.
Well, and the thing about Omega is if he's not your ace, that means you've essentially failed with him because he came in as the ace. And just because you're elevating other people doesn't mean you have to de-elevate the main person. Don't like WWE them where you're just beating them too much and they lose all of that flame they had. And I think Moxley could afford a loss here, but I think the bright side of this is another unsanctioned match, so a win or a loss doesn't really hurt that bad. It's going to be killer and death type of shit, so that should be fine. And I really could see Moxley just destroying Omega within an inch of his life, and Riho has to come out and throw in the towel because she just doesn't want to see Omega get killed, and they've continued to build up that love or whatever. But because I really don't otherwise see how you get out of this match, because I do almost feel like they've essentially, that's where, again, the unsanctioned factor helps, but they did kind of book themselves into a corner by doing this feud so early, because both guys have kind of lost quite a bit for who they are. And in the same token of Omega being the ace-like worker, Moxley is very much one of the ace names, especially as far as modern names, and you have to keep that fire going. You can't, if you beat Moxley too much, because with the name change, it already is very borderline, people who knew him, because my brothers were huge fans of Dean, and they're I'm still gonna call him Dean, I don't care, and all of that, and it's okay, he's gonna keep that popularity, but if you beat him enough, he's just gonna feel oh, he's that WWE guy that gets beat a lot. So that one I would like to see. I honestly don't know. I'll just say Moxley for the split decision between me and you.
Okay.
And then the championship match, the AEW World Championship. We got Jericho versus Cody. Cody says if he loses, he's never challenging for the World Championship again. What are you thinking?
I'm going Cody just because of that stipulation. I cannot see Cody never being the champion in this company. It's just he's too perfect to be the champion, and I know that's exactly why he might lose, and I know that's possible, but I just don't see it, and so I'm gonna go Cody.
Yeah, my one small thought as I was literally reading this was they might decide to make this the first pay-per-view match where they do something dirty or dusty or whatever you want to call it, where it's a double count out or a double knockout or something like that, where neither guy wins but neither guy loses. And that would kind of piss me off because they did that to themselves. You didn't have to book where if Cody loses, he never gets a championship match again. You could have just had him actually lose, or you could have just done a different match for Jericho if you didn't want him to lose. Whatever you want to do here, don't make this be that situation, but it really feels like it the way that they've booked that. And if you don't want Cody to win, that's almost the only other way to do it, unless you do that unprecedented thing of saying he's really never going to challenge for the title.
Yeah, and like you said, that would be unprecedented and it would be different. So I'm not going to say it would be the worst thing in the world. It would be interesting as hell. I don't want it to happen.
Well, and then the thing that I might like about it is it gives them an opportunity to continue to flesh out the Cody and MJF thing where maybe they get a tag team run or something going because Cody lost, and then that gives Cody almost the mentor role of saying, this is why I'm not going for the title and I'm pushing MJF towards it. But
that'd be cool.
Again, these are long shots in my opinion. These are me picking out little random reasons that would make sense and be fine, but maybe not to the everyday fan. So
yeah.
But going into Full Gear, I am excited. I think that it's a solid card and should be an exciting weekend for any AEW or just pro wrestling fan in general. If you haven't made a $50 purchase for pro wrestling in a while, I can understand being a little hesitant too. But if you take the splurge, grab some friends, get them to come over, I'll throw in $10 or whatever, $20, and get some pizza and shit like that. This could be an epic night, another great card, and them continuing to build with a pay-per-view that has another show going right after it. So I'm excited. I'm actually excited to check out the new little preview show that they have going right now so I can get a little bit more hype of what they've got going on. But it's cool, and I'm glad that we just, it was a good Wednesday night again for wrestling fans. But if you had to pick, what was your main event, AJ?
I think it's the main event. I think it's Jericho and Sammy versus Omega and Hangman. Because nothing really popped out for me on this show. The tag team match was good, but it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. So, and Trent and Pac was great. And like I said, it probably would be my main event if it wasn't for that finish. So I'm going to go to the main event.
Yeah, I might be right there with you. I think I will do something a little different this time, though. And I'll say that Cody Rhodes' promo was my main event segment of the night. Because the idea of Wednesday night's main event is to tell the fans what they cannot miss, what they should absolutely go and see if they're not going to watch anything from AEW this week. And if you're going to watch nothing else, I would say watch Cody's promo going in on Jericho. But if I have to pick a match, I'm right there with you, AJ, on the Inner Circle beating the Elite. Maybe not, because I really liked that Joey Janela and Jimmy Havok match last night.
That was good.
On Dynamite, and we have chose a couple dark matches before, so maybe just to be a little bit different. I will say that probably the quality of both tag team matches was maybe just on par, unless you hate Marco Stunt and Jungle Boy, then you will not agree with me in any way, shape, or form. But if you enjoy them, and you enjoy Joey, and you enjoy Jimmy Havok, it was fun enough, and I liked it, so that'll be my main event match of the week.
All right.
But that really wraps everything up. Go ahead and plug your social media, AJ.
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy.
You can follow the podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at All Elite Everything. You can check out our website, alleliteeverything.com. You can also check us out on Facebook at All Elite Pod. If you happen to be around StarCast and you see me walking around in really nice clothes, dressed up, I'm going to be wearing some dressed up clothes and all that fancy stuff. Come and say hi, say what's up, hang out, talk for a little bit. Otherwise, enjoy the weekend. If you're tuning into Full Gear, enjoy that. I think that this should be a really fun time for wrestling fans. Once again, I think every time an AEW pay-per-view comes up, it's just going to be a great time for fans. So,
yeah.
And as always, you can follow me on social media at AllEliteAndy. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Big shout out to all of our viewers on YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, all that great shit. Till next time, see ya.
Bye.